Today, we're covering the case of Tatsuya Ichihashi, a case known for its uniquely bizarre and disturbing details. When 22-year-old Lindsay Hawker traveled to Tokyo to teach English, it was supposed to be the start of an amazing adventure. Instead, it would turn into something so unimaginably horrific that it would become the subject of a best-selling memoir and later a movie. As for Lindsay's killer, his desperate attempts to avoid identification were so gruesome they'd earn him near cult hero status. So, prepare yourselves. This is the disturbing story of Tatsuya Ichihashi. Before we dive into this tragic case, we would like to express our deepest condolences to the family and friends of Lindsay and Hawker. Her life was tragically and brutally taken from her in a manner that defies comprehension. Our journey now takes us to Tokyo, Japan, a sprawling megacity with a population of 35 million. A place where the modern and the traditional coexist in an incredible fusion. Known for its vibrant anime and manga culture, massive electronic megastores, and more Michelin stars than both London and Paris combined, Tokyo never sleeps. This city blends centuries-old traditions with cutting-edge technology, where neon-lit skyscrapers stand shoulder to shoulder with ancient temples. In October 2007, Lindsay Hawker, 22, arrived in the Edogawa ward of Tokyo, eager to begin her new job at the Tokyo branch of Nova, Japan's largest private English school. Hailing from a small town near Coventry in Warwickshire, England, Lindsay had grown up in a close-knit family with her parents, Bill and Julia, and two sisters. Known for her infectious enthusiasm and bright personality, Lindsay had always been ambitious. She had graduated with a first-class honors degree in biology from the University of Leeds just a few months before. After years of hard study, Lindsay was ready for a fresh start. She and her boyfriend of 4 years, Ryan Garside, had planned a world trip, with Lindsay setting off first to teach English in Tokyo, while Ryan would join her the following summer. Lindsay quickly adapted to life in Japan. She forged strong friendships with her two roommates and immersed herself in her work at Nova, where her employers praised her dedication and commitment. She stayed in constant touch with her family and friends, sharing her experiences in Tokyo. In one email to her sisters, she spoke of how safe and secure the city felt, safer, even, than back home in Britain. Little did they know, those words would come to haunt them in the most unimaginable way. On the morning of March 25th, Lindsay packed her tote bag with the materials she needed for the day, waved goodbye to her roommates, and left her apartment on her bike. That would be the last time anyone saw her. On the afternoon of March 26th, Lindsay's father received an alarming call at 2:30 p.m. from a staff member at Nova. Lindsay had missed her classes for 2 consecutive days. Her roommates, already concerned after she failed to return home from work the previous evening, had contacted the police, but the report hadn't reached the correct department in time. Her family was frantic. Without hesitation, her father booked a flight to Tokyo, and he was soon joined by Lindsay's boyfriend, Ryan. Both her roommates and Ryan had crucial information, which, when pieced together, painted a chilling picture. Just 6 days earlier, on March 20th, Lindsay had been on her way home after drinks at a bar called Hippy Dippy Doo when a man approached her. He was older than her, claiming to be one of her students, though Lindsay knew all of her students, and he was not one of them. She politely declined to engage and exited the train at her stop. As she neared her apartment, however, she spotted the man again, now jogging fast behind her. He had followed her all the way from the station and was now standing at her doorstep. He asked if she recognized him, and despite her growing unease, she insisted she didn't. The man then told her he was interested in studying abroad and desperately needed an English tutor. He asked if she could offer him a glass of water. Thinking him to be an enthusiastic, albeit eccentric individual, Lindsay agreed to let him in, where her roommates were also present. Inside Lindsay's apartment, police found a sketch the man had drawn of her, signed with the name Tatsuya Ichihashi, along with a phone number and email address. Her roommates recalled that Lindsay had agreed to meet the man for an English lesson at a cafe, despite their warnings. Lindsay, confident there was no danger, had arranged to meet him at the Duo Tour Cafe on March 20th, and it would be the last time anyone saw her. Her final message on Facebook, written that same day, read, "Love you lots. Don't worry about the guy who chased me home. It's just crazy Japan. Miss you." Meanwhile, the police had managed to recover grainy surveillance footage from the morning of March 25, 2007, taken at the Duo Tour Cafe near the station in East Tokyo. The footage clearly showed Lindsay and the man, Ichihashi, ordering drinks at the counter. Lindsay appeared visibly uncomfortable, repeatedly pushing her hair out of her face. The two sat together for nearly 50 minutes while Lindsay gave him a language lesson. When the time came to leave, Ichihashi exaggeratedly searched for his wallet, pretending to have lost it. By 10 a.m., the pair exited the cafe and were seen getting into a taxi together. At 5:20 p.m. on March 26th, two officers arrived at Tatsuya Ichihashi's apartment in Ichikawa. The man who had entered the taxi with Lindsay had been stalking her for months. Tatsuya Ichihashi, 28 years old, lived alone in a 3-bedroom apartment that his parents had bought for him in the suburban town of Chiba, east of Tokyo. Born to wealthy and accomplished professionals, his mother a dentist and his father a brain surgeon, Tatsuya had not inherited their ambition or intellect. Although his parents had pressured him to attend Chiba University, he had graduated in 2005 with a degree in horticulture. However, he never pursued a career in that field, instead spending the past 2 years living off his parents' generous allowance. During his time at college, Tatsuya found himself in a relationship, but those close to him described him as a loner, someone deeply isolated, or in Japanese terms, a hikikomori. This condition involves extreme social withdrawal. Tatsuya became fixated on violent manga and began exhibiting increasingly troubling behavior. 2 years earlier, he had assaulted a woman in an attempt to rob her on the street. The woman eventually settled the matter out of court with Tatsuya's parents. While in university, Tatsuya had received a formal warning for stalking a woman, yet his girlfriend, who had been with him during his university years, later described their relationship as stable and serious. She continued to visit him in prison after his arrest. Tatsuya's obsession with physical fitness became apparent during this time. He spent hours at the gym each day and cycled 15 miles daily, much to his girlfriend's concern. However, by 2007, the signs that Tatsuya's mental state was deteriorating were unmistakable. He reportedly confided in acquaintances, saying he was becoming unstable. It remains unclear whether anyone urged him to seek help. Instead, Tatsuya fixated on an unsuspecting stranger, Lindsay Hawker, a young British English teacher. Police investigations later revealed that Tatsuya had stalked Lindsay for months, patiently waiting for the opportunity to approach her. One day, he noticed the logo of her English language school on her tote bag and seized the moment to strike up a conversation. Tatsuya lured Lindsay to his apartment under the pretext of not having money for their cafe bill. The apartment in Ichikawa was only a 5-minute drive away. Once they arrived, Lindsay, cautious but trusting, asked the taxi driver to wait for her while she quickly went inside to collect the money. 7 minutes passed without any sign of Lindsay, and the taxi driver eventually drove off. Tragically, he would be the last person to see her alive, aside from her killer. Back at Tatsuya's apartment, police officers quietly set up a watch. By Japanese law, They couldn't enter or even knock without sufficient legal cause. Given his history of stalking and attempted robbery, they had called for reinforcements. By 8 p.m., 9 officers had surrounded both the building's ground level and the entrance to his 4th-floor apartment. At approximately p.m., the tension broke. Tatsuya suddenly burst out of his apartment, barefoot and carrying a rucksack, bolting toward the building's fire escape. Startled officers gave chase, but Tatsuya was agile and desperate. He vaulted over the last set of stairs, landing hard on the ground, but quickly regaining his footing. Despite the officers being close behind, Tatsuya zigzagged through the streets, narrowly avoiding capture in a daring escape that would keep him on the run for years. This brief pursuit would be the closest police would come to capturing Tatsuya for more than 2 years. The discovery of Lindsay, however, would happen much sooner and in a way no one could have prepared for. On Tatsuya's balcony, officers noticed something strange, a bathtub freshly filled with a mixture of sand and compost. Next to it stood a potted plant, seemingly abandoned mid-task. It appeared that Tatsuya had been in the process of covering something he hadn't quite finished. Upon closer inspection, a small white hand protruded from the gritty mixture inside the bathtub. Later, neighbors would recall hearing a heavy scraping noise the previous evening, likely the sound of Tatsuya dragging the bathtub onto his balcony. Inside the tub, police made a grim discovery: the naked, lifeless body of Lindsay Hawker. Her hands and feet had been bound tightly with gardening ties, and a scarf had been forced into her mouth as a gag. The extent of the injuries told a horrific story of what she had endured. Bruises across her body and face indicated a prolonged and brutal attack. Despite her training in martial arts and her valiant attempts to fight back, Lindsay had been overwhelmed by Tatsuya's superior strength. Large, egg-shaped bruises on her face suggested repeated punches, while other marks indicated violent collisions with furniture. She had been whipped and strangled so fiercely that the cartilage in her neck had shattered. In one final act of macabre cruelty, her head had been completely shaved, with her hair meticulously placed inside a plastic bag. Her belongings were strewn chaotically across the room, evidence of the violent struggle that had unfolded there. At 3 a.m. on March 27th, Lindsay's parents received the phone call every parent dreads: a body had been found. The nightmare they had hoped against all odds to avoid had become a harrowing reality. The journey that was meant to bring them closer to their daughter turned into a devastating trip to confirm her identity. Bill, Lindsay's father, described the moment he saw her. "I recognized her right away. She was so tall, and she was my daughter. But when I saw her, beaten beyond recognition, I felt like my life, my soul, had just fallen apart." Posters of Tatsuya flooded Tokyo, and soon 30,000 were distributed throughout Japan. Some of the images were disturbing, showing Tatsuya disguised in various ways, including as a woman. These images were broadcast not just across Japan, but around the world. Sightings of Tatsuya began pouring in from every corner of Japan. Many reports placed him in Kabukicho, Tokyo's notorious red light district. Authorities followed every lead, but he remained hidden. There were even rumors suggesting that he had either fled the country or tragically ended his life. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. By October 2008, 140 officers were assigned to the investigation, but despite 8,000 reported sightings and widespread media coverage, Tatsuya remained a ghost. As the case grew colder, the Hawker family, desperate for answers, took matters into their own hands and launched a website calling for help in locating Tatsuya Ichihashi. Tatsuya's parents, who had previously kept quiet, found themselves thrust into the harsh light of public suspicion. With pressure mounting, his mother reached out to a daytime TV program, pleading with her son to surrender. "Tatsuya, it's Mom," she said in an emotional recorded message. "Your father and I have decided to speak, though we know you won't want us to. Please contact the police." Not long after, the couple made a public apology on television, acknowledging the gravity of their son's crime. As the second anniversary of Lindsay's death neared, police distributed life-sized cardboard cutouts of Tatsuya in an effort to keep his face in the public's mind. Meanwhile, the Hawkers, devastated and desperate for answers, returned to Tokyo, begging for any clue about their daughter's killer. In response, the authorities significantly raised the reward for information, leading to Tatsuya's capture from 1 million yen to 10 million yen, roughly $121,000. However, a more disturbing trend emerged amidst the growing manhunt. A bizarre fascination with Tatsuya began to surface. Online communities started forming, glorifying him as a notorious outlaw and anti-hero fugitive. He earned titles like the Fugitive Sullen Prince and Lord Ichi, even attracting admiration from young men. Blogs and support groups, bizarrely dedicated to the criminal, flourished across the web. What no one knew, though, was how much Tatsuya had altered his appearance over the past 2 years, making it even harder for authorities to track him. In a memoir that became a bestseller, Tatsuya recounted his experience as a fugitive. With no money, no credit cards, and no passport, he wandered the streets of Tokyo before retreating to a grim district in Ibaraki Prefecture, where he mingled with homeless individuals. It was there that he first encountered the widespread media coverage of his face on wanted posters, realizing the extent of the manhunt. From that moment on, he became a ghost, hiding in plain sight. He adopted various tactics to avoid detection, wearing hats, glasses, and staying clear of surveillance cameras. He never reached out to friends or family, determined to remain invisible. But as the search tightened, Tatsuya resorted to drastic measures. Desperate to change his appearance, he took matters into his own hands. Armed with a box cutter, he carefully sliced off the moles on his left cheek, which had been so prominent in the wanted images. Then, using scissors, he attempted to reshape his lower lip, hoping to make it thinner. His first attempt was excruciating, and he was forced to stop midway when the pain became unbearable. Tatsuya didn't stop there. A few days later, in a public restroom, he finished the work he had started on his face. Using a needle and thread, he painstakingly narrowed his nose, sewing it together to change its shape. While his face healed, he wore multiple layers of surgical masks to cover the signs of his work. His paranoia about being recognized grew, and he moved farther south, taking trains and buses, until he arrived in Shikoku, Japan's southwestern island. There, he set off on a pilgrimage of temples. Tatsuya believed that the temples could somehow offer him redemption. He hoped that by visiting these shrines, he could atone for his crime and, as bizarre as it sounded, bring Lindsay back to life, an idea he had borrowed from a novel in which a person could resurrect the dead by making a pilgrimage while thinking of the deceased. As the days passed, his anxiety about being identified consumed him. He knew that to truly disappear, he had to undergo even more drastic changes. So, he decided to visit a plastic surgeon, but for that, he needed money. Tatsuya took on a new identity, using the name and address of a deceased man named Kosuke Inoue. He got a job at a construction company in Osaka, where he worked for the next 13 months, saving every penny. In the end, he managed to save about 1 million yen. Tatsuya spent most of this money on 2 major surgeries, one to lengthen and narrow his nose, and another to raise the bridge of his nose, further altering his appearance. He used fake names and addresses at the clinics and made sure never to return for follow-up appointments, hoping to leave no trace behind. At the construction company, His colleagues found him odd, but never suspected that he was the fugitive they had all heard about. Tatsuya isolated himself, rarely interacting with others. He spent most of his time reading comics and watching videos in his dorm room. His signature red cap and black-rimmed glasses were his constant companions, never leaving his face in public. When he was persuaded to join the company's bowling trip in April, he hid behind a colleague during a group photo, determined to remain unseen. One of his former colleagues later reflected, "We all thought he was strange, but I never suspected he was the one we had all heard about in the news. Now I realize he was probably saving money for those surgeries." Ultimately, it was his obsession with changing his identity that would lead to his downfall. In mid-October, Tatsuya visited a clinic in Fukuoka, requesting a procedure to change the shape of his mouth. Then, just days later, on October 24th, he went to a clinic in Nagoya for yet another surgery to lift the shape of his nose. It was at this Nagoya clinic that the staff began to take notice of the strange and unusual scars on his left cheek, where he had once sliced off his moles. They grew suspicious, but Tatsuya continued on his path, unaware that his appearance was becoming his greatest mistake. The clinic staff, disturbed by Tatsuya's appearance, reported his visit to the police, providing multiple pictures of the man who had undergone surgery. Authorities quickly recognized him. On November 4, 2009, they released the images to the media, revealing the shocking transformation. His new face, stripped of the moles on his left cheek, with a thinner bottom lip, a raised nose bridge, and double fold eyelids, was unrecognizable compared to his old look. Tatsuya, upon seeing his new face plastered across the television, froze in fear. In his memoir, he described the moment. "My heart raced. I gazed at it trembling. Panic surged through him as the reality of being exposed set in. Desperate, he rushed to make himself unrecognizable. He got a haircut, bought a disguise kit containing a fake beard, sideburns, and mustache, and quickly made his way to the ferry terminal in Osaka, intending to flee to Okinawa, far from the authorities. But on November 10, 2009, just as he was about to board a ferry to Okinawa, a passerby noticed him. The man was tall, wearing sunglasses, a hat, and a paper surgical mask, an odd sight. The passerby's suspicion led him to alert authorities. Moments later, Tatsuya Ichihashi, after more than 2.5 years on the run, was arrested at the ferry terminal in Osaka, ending his life as a fugitive.
This has been a long, hard battle for the Hawkers, and the battle is over. We've worked tirelessly as a family. We've never given in for our daughter. We've never given in. We wanted justice, and we've finally got justice. I'll also just like to thank the Japanese police. After a very bungled start to my daughter's murder, they've got their man. They've worked tirelessly, and they've eventually got the man. And the chief officer told me they would get the man sooner or later. We're just so relieved that this part of our life is over. I can go down to my daughter's grave this afternoon and tell her. Thank you.
I'd just like to say, I'd like to echo what my parents have said, but also I hope that our case kind of gives other families some kind of hope. We thank the Japanese press, we thank the Japanese people, but really, it's us that have done this. We haven't given up, not from day one. All the sleepless nights, all the not eating, all the crying, all the tears, it's all been worth it now. And we've got what we wanted, which was justice for Lindsay.
One commenter wrote, "He's really cool," while another stated, when he was arrested, "I thought his disheveled black hair and the line along his neck to his jaw made him look so sexy. Other fans highlighted his physical appearance and talents, calling attention to his background as the son of physicians, his height, lean physique, artistic ability, and his proficiency in foreign languages. However, for Lindsay's family, their grief and the need for justice remained paramount. They pushed hard for Tatsuya to face the death penalty. But his defense attorneys argued that he could potentially be rehabilitated, leading to his sentence being less severe. During his trial, Tatsuya admitted to raping and killing Lindsay, but he claimed it had been an accident while attempting to silence her screams. He also alleged that he tried to revive her and called an ambulance, though no evidence was ever provided to back up his statements. Prosecutors argued that Tatsuya had violently attacked Lindsay shortly after she entered his apartment, using tape to bind her. In 2011, Tatsuya published a book titled Until the Arrest, in which he chronicled his life on the run. However, he avoided discussing the specifics of his crime, his motives, or the horrific nature of what he did to Lindsay. Instead, he focused on his life as a fugitive, the paranoia and fear of being caught. The book became a bestseller both in Japan and abroad, including in Britain. It later inspired a film, I Am Ichihashi, Journal of a Murderer, which dramatized his experiences. On July 21, 2011, the Chiba District Court sentenced Tatsuya Ichihashi to life imprisonment for the murder of Lindsay Hawker. While the court's decision brought closure to the case, Lindsay's family remained steadfast in their desire for justice. Lindsay's father stated, "We wanted justice, and we finally got justice." Lindsay's boyfriend, Ryan Garside, expressed his own grief, saying, "I had made plans to propose to the English teacher who had been the best thing in my life." If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like the video, comment down below with your thoughts, and please subscribe to the channel. Also, hit the notification bell to stay updated every time we reveal a new, shocking case. If you have a case you'd like to see covered, feel free to drop us a line in the comments. We appreciate your support. Each and every one of our subscribers means the world to us. Until next time, stay safe and keep your eyes peeled. You never know what's lurking in the shadows.